Suddenly a figure flashed in front of them. Yun Jian, who was in front of them, moved to Wei Zai's back in a flash like a flash of lightning. Wei Zai was shocked. He quickly turned around and reached out. However, no matter how fast Wei Zai's reaction was, Yun Jian immediately grabbed his arm when he reached out. In the next second, Yun Jian grabbed the joints of his arm and hit them twice. Wei Zai was shocked to realize that when Yun Jian hit his arm, it was as if his acupoints were hit and he couldn't exert any strength. What's going on? What kind of skill is this? Before Wei Zai could react, Yun Jian had already let go of Wei Zai's hand and kicked Wei Zai's lower waist from behind. Wei Zai staggered forward a few steps before he stabilized himself. This scene caused an uproar in the audience. However, just as the people present witnessed Yun Jian's attack for the first time and were shocked by Yun Jian's speed, accuracy, and ruthlessness, they heard Yun Jian's words again. There was a hint of arrogance in her words that no one could go against. Before the end of the competition, both of your hands can no longer hold anything. I'll accept your hands. I won't kill you, but remember, you're not the only person in this world who dares to order me around. However, the only person who ordered me around and didn't get killed by me is you, my good brother. Please remember the domain name of this book, mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2338. Yun Jian's words were loud and clear, and they echoed throughout the hall. Everyone was shocked when they heard Yun Jian's words. She accepted his hand? What did that mean? Just as everyone was stunned by Yun Jian's arrogant tone but did not know what she meant, Yun Jian's voice rang out. What did you do to my hand? Why can't I use my hand? A nervous voice suddenly sounded. Everyone's expression froze when they heard this. They turned to look at the source of the voice and it was Wei Zai. Wei Zai's hand was like a pile of mud after being hit by Yun Jian at the joints. It was difficult for him to even raise his hand. Not to mention whether he could hold the foil in the fencing competition 3 days later. Boom. Everyone's faces turned pale when they heard Wei Zai's words. What Zai are you talking about? She can make your hand lose its strength? Hong Ling grabbed Wei Zai's hand and asked in shock. Wei Zai tried many times but the parts of his arm that Yun Jian had grabbed and tapped on were immobilized. His expression darkened before he uttered in fear, I'm sorry but I'm sorry. I really can't move. Wei Zai looked at Yun Jian with fear for the first time. He felt that his sister, who had returned to the Wei family after being separated for 10 years, was so mysterious and scary. Wei Lin, what did you do to Big Brother? Big Brother is representing the Wei family in the fencing competition 3 days later. What did you go through outside? Why are you so vicious? Wei Min did not hesitate to shout at Yun Jian when she saw that. Wei Min wasn't stupid. She spoke to Yun Jian in such a way in front of Luo Jiejun because it would be abnormal if she wasn't angry at Yun Jian. Vicious? Yun Jian sneered when she heard Wei Min's words. You even want to poison your own brother. You've already lost your mind. Wei Lin, I sincerely welcome you back to the Wei family. As your elder sister, I have been worried about your safety day and night for the past 10 years that you were separated from me. I was so worried that I woke up in the middle of the night. I dreamed that you were crying and shouting that you were scared and wanted to go home. When I woke up at night, I couldn't stop crying because I was worried about you. But you even wanted to harm our own brother. How did you become like this? As Wei Min spoke, tears welled up in the corners of her eyes. Those who didn't know would really think that Wei Min was sad and worried about Yun Jian. She played the role of a good sister perfectly. In fact, Wei Min was indeed so frightened that she woke up in the middle of the night. Due to Wei Lin's disappearance, she was so frightened that she couldn't stop crying. That was because Wei Min had dreamt that she had purposely fabricated the story of her younger sister, Wei Lin, who had accidentally gone missing. She had dreamt that Wei Lin had died and had turned into a malicious spirit to seek revenge. Therefore Wei Min had been scared awake and cried. This was completely true. Then what kind of person did you think I was in the beginning? Just as Wei Min was crying in front of everyone with the face of a good sister, Yun Jian's voice suddenly rang out. Kind-hearted? Bullied by you? From what you're saying, it seems that you're all right. After Yun Jian finished speaking, her red arc rose. In the next second, the rising red arc fell. Luo Jiejun and the others were taken aback by the nonchalant look on her face. What she said next rang out abruptly and echoed throughout the hall. You're right. You're right. I'm sorry, I'm not that kind of person. Vicious? I'll be very responsible to tell you that a group of people once said that I was the most terrifying devil in the world. I think the word vicious is an underestimation of me. So, if you want to see how vicious I can be, you can give it a try. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2339. Normally, when a girl heard others say that she was vicious, she would either try to defend herself or try her best to salvage the vicious image she left in front of others. However, Luo Jiejun, Hongling, Wei Zhe, and everyone else present had never seen someone like Yun Jian. When people said that she had a vicious heart, they were comparing her to a vicious villain. However, not only did she admit that she had a vicious heart, she even said such words to everyone present? The scariest demon in the world. Then he thought about what Yun Jian said to Ling Chanshan when she faced her. Luo Jiejun's eyes turned sharp. What kind of past did she have? Why was it that the more he wanted to get closer to her and the more he wanted to understand her, the more secrets he discovered about her? Where had she been for the past 10 years? What kind of life had she lived? In spite of that, Luo Jiejun's interest in Yun Jian grew as more and more secrets piled up on her. He wanted to pry open her inner world and see what she had gone through in the past. Everyone present could feel that returning to the Wei clan would definitely be a battle of life and death. Then at this moment, Luo Jiejun got out of the car and said to them coldly, "You don't have to come here to die." Yun Jian's words had a magical power that made people unable to remain towards the entrance of the Wei residence. After Wei Min heard Yun Jian's words, I'm strong enough to protect you. Then she stared at Yun Jian for 2 seconds. But just as Luo Jiejun was about to speak, he saw that Yun Jian had already arrived at the entrance of the Wei residence. Something big has happened. Before stepping into the Wei residence, come back with me. Luo Jiejun just as Wei Min was about to speak, Yun Jian take off her cotton-padded clothes. Looking closely, she was wearing a person who came was actually the Wei family's head butler. There were countless knives by the Wei family's old master Wei waist. There was also an Wei family's head butler rushing for the school to find her. She looked even more like a special agent in the movies. In the next second, she didn't want to be entangled with Wei Min and the others. Wei Min, Wei Zhe, she quickly caught up with the Wei family's head butler and walked back to the Wei family. The Wei clan was also stunned. Before the Wei family's head butler left, just as everyone was stunned, they heard a sniper rifle sweep toward Yun Jian. Something big has happened. Yun Jian tilted her head. If the young masters and young ladies go together, they might lose their knives from her thighs and held them in her hands. She's already gone. With the blades pointed downwards, she rushed into the Wei residence's entrance as he pushed the Wei family's head steward aside and followed after him. The few people who couldn't react in time, so she naturally couldn't watch Luo Jiejun go alone. Please remember the domain name of this book. And Wei Zhe wanted to protect his sister, so he naturally followed along. As for Luo Jiejun and Hongling, because they were brothers, they also followed. Endless Fantasy Translation. On the way, editor. The Wei family's Endless Fantasy Translation guessing Yun Jian's true identity. A group of people rushed into the house and captured old everyone present. They even let me out the butterfly knives tightly with both within an hour. The blades of the knives were pointed downwards as she dodged the Wei stopped speaking at this point. It was as if she knew exactly what path the sniper would take to shoot her. Left, right, front, back. Every dodge was a dangerous move. She managed to avoid the sniper's bullets from afar. There were a few times when she missed by just a few millimeters and would have died. As for the snipers who were shooting at Yun Jian, it was obvious that they were going to kill her. The bullets from the sniper were like a scene in a rain of bullets. Dozens of people were sniping at Yun Jian from high up in the air, and Yun Jian was always able to escape at the crucial moment of life and death. Her skills, her capability, and her various performances were as if she was born in a world of bullets and bullets. Just as she had said earlier. She had said that Ling Chanshan's life was something she had never dared to imagine before. In her world, as long as she dared to close her eyes and sleep, someone would send her to her death. If she wanted to live, her hands had to be stained with blood. In order to live, she would not hesitate to kill everyone around her, including her friends. In the past, Luo Jiejun and the others did not believe Yun Jian's words. Who did she think she was? A world-class figure? Someone wanted to kill her just because she was asleep? But just now, Luo Jiejun, Wei Zhe, and the others suddenly realized something. When they saw Yun Jian moving so nimbly in the rain of bullets, they were stunned. Their first reaction after being stunned was panic. They had heard from the Wei family's butler that the group of people had kidnapped Wei Xiao to capture the Wei family's youngest daughter, Wei Lin. Just as everyone was thinking about this, Yun Jian entered the Wei family's house under the sniper's bullets and disappeared before everyone's eyes. Luo Jiejun, Wei Zhe, and the others were scared pale. Part of the reason was because of Yun Jian's ability to dodge bullets. Another part was because Yun Jian's actions were exactly the same as the world she had described not long ago. She was someone from the rain of bullets. Then who was her true identity? Luo Jiejun furrowed his brows. His face was full of shock. He looked in the direction Yun Jian went and fell into deep thought. F***ck. F***ck. Wei Lin she. Not only is she good at fixing phones, she's also amazing. Luo Jiejun, Luo Mu, Luo translation for translation. Yun Jian's words Luo Jiao translation. Yun Jian translation. Yun Jian Luo. Translation. Yunjian. Wei Min was also stunned. Then she swallowed a mouthful of saliva and turned her head to Luo Jiejun. She asked Luo Jiejun in a trembling voice, Brother Jiejun, no matter how powerful she is, she's still no match for you, right? When she asked this, Wei Min spoke to Luo Jiejun in an uncertain tone, but she desperately hoped that she was speaking in the right tone. However, as soon as she said this, Wei Min heard Luo Jiejun speak. Based on what happened just now, I'm still not sure who's more powerful between me and her. But one thing I'm sure of is that if it were me, there's no way I'd be able to rush into the Wei family's house alive under so many sniper rifles. As soon as he said this, Wei Zhe, Hongling, Luo Jiejun and Wei Min were all stunned. Then they all shut their mouths. The Wei family's youngest daughter, Wei Lin, who had been lost for 10 years and was finally found. Where had she been for the past 10 years? What kind of life had she been living? Why would her enemies come looking for her? What kind of identity and status did she have in the world she spoke of? Who exactly was she? Just as everyone was deep in thought, Hong Ling suddenly recalled something. He turned his head abruptly and looked at everyone. He immediately said in a shocked tone, Could it be as she said, that she really came from an assassin organization? Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2341. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. She's from an assassin organization? How is this possible? Wei Min refuted loudly and exaggeratedly before anyone could react to Hong Ling's words. How is that not possible? Min, I remember that your sister was only 8 years old when she was lost, right? Moreover, she was kidnapped into a van and taken away right in front of you. Their assassin organization likes to kidnap girls like this to train their assassins or agents. Your sister was only 8 years old then. It's normal for her to be sent to an assassin organization and undergo inhumane training. Hong Ling obviously had some understanding of the International Assassin Organization. That was why he was able to make such a clear statement in front of everyone. If Wei Lin was really from an assassin organization, it would not be unreasonable for her to be so powerful. However, everyone knew that the special agents or killers who could come out of the assassin organization were all very powerful people. Wei Min could not convince herself that Yun Jian was a powerful person. What? She had been separated from Wei Lin for so many years. She received so much attention the moment she came back. She was
Outside
even
the Wei
kidnapped to an
family's villa,
assassin organization
there were so many
and was
people
even
waiting
more
to capture
powerful
Yun
than
Jian
her when
that
she
not
came
even a
back.
fly could
This
sneak
shouldn't
into the
be.
Wei family's
This
villa.
shouldn't be. However,
Then
no
what was
one
the
knew
point
that
of her
someone had
tricking the
already snuck
8-year-old
into the
Wei
back
Lin
door
and
of the
throwing
Wei
her away?
clan's villa? The Wei
The
clan's
people in the
main
van
hall.
did not pay
The old
attention to
master of
Hong
the Wei
Ling's
clan,
words.
Wei Xiao,
Even
and his
Hong
wife
Ling himself
Wang
was just
Ruoya
spouting
were tied
nonsense.
up in the middle of the Wei
However,
clan's
no one
main
expected
hall.
Wei Min to
Standing
react
in
so
front of them was
strongly.
an old man in
For
his
a moment,
60s. Everyone
this
in the
old
van
man
had
who
their
was
own
about
thoughts.
60 years old,
was
around the Wei
standing in
family
place with a
mansion.
face full of
There
hatred.
were many men with
He
guns
saw the Wei
standing around the
family's
Wei
door
family
open and a
mansion.
subordinate
They were
walk in.
walking back and
When he
forth
saw
around
his
the mansion.
subordinate, the old
It was
man
obvious
frowned and
that this
asked,
group of people
"Is she
had Wei
dead?"
Xiao and the rest of the Wei family
30
under
snipers
control.
locked onto her
At the
at the
back
same
door
time,
of the Wei
but she
family
dodged
mansion,
all the bullets
two
from the
men with
sniper
guns were
rifles.
walking back and forth.
She escaped.
There were many
The
people who
subordinate's
looked the
heart
same
trembled
as
as
these
he
two
spoke
men
in
standing
fear.
around the Wei family
Trash.
mansion.
The old
Even
man
if there
walked
was any
over and
news,
kicked the
it would
underling
not
in the
escape their
abdomen,
eyes,
sending the underling
TSK
flying
tisk.
10 meters away.
Just then, two
Wei
soft
Xiao
sounds
and
were
his
heard.
wife, Wang
As soon
Ruoya,
as the sound
couldn't
rang
help
out,
but tremble
a
in
gust of
fear when
wind
they
blew
heard the
past and
subordinate's
covered the
words.
subtle sound of
30
a knife
snipers
piercing
had
into a
attacked a
person's
single
flesh.
person.
Yet
Two
that
butterfly
person had
knives
still managed
stabbed
to
into the
escape
hearts of the
alive.
two men who were
Who was
walking
this
around the
person to
back
have
door of
such
the Wei
heaven-defying
residence with guns
strength?
in their hands.
Just as
A
everyone
figure
in the
rolled
hall
out
was
from the
panicking,
bushes.
an indifferent
Yun Jian
female
pulled out
voice
the butterfly
suddenly rang
knife
out
from the two men's
Her
hearts.
flat and
The two
indifferent
men
words
didn't even
startled
have
the
time
fear
to
in
make a
everyone's
sound
hearts.
before they breathed their
The
last.
boss of T Nation's
After putting away the
black
butterfly
market
knife,
Limu,
Yun
you're
Jian
really in the
grabbed the
mood.
back of the two
I
men's
haven't
collars
settled the
and
score
threw them
with
into
you
the
for the
tall
failed
grass.
assassination
Then
last
she
time,
flashed
and
into
you've
the
come
Wei
knocking on
family's
my door
villa.
today?
Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2342. Page 1/1. That's right, Limu was the boss of Country T's underground black market. He was also the mastermind behind the assassination attempt on Yun Jian a few days ago. A few days ago, the group of people suddenly fired machine guns at Yun Jian, but Yun Jian snatched the machine guns away. Just as she was about to reveal the mastermind behind the assassination attempt, she said the word, and was shot from a high altitude. At the same time as the boss of Country T's underground black market, Limu was also the biological father of Xianyu whom Yun Jian killed in Marilena's tomb. Outsiders only knew that Xianyu worked for Country T's underground black market boss Limu, but they didn't know that Limu was Xianyu's biological father. Today, Limu found Yun Jian and sent people to assassinate Yun Jian. It wasn't hard to explain that he wanted to take revenge on Yun Jian for his son Xianyu. Woo woo woo. Woo woo. When Wang Ruoya saw Yun Jian, she almost fainted. Because her mouth was covered, Wang Ruoya could only blow air into her mouth. Yun Jian's current identity was Wang Ruoya's youngest daughter, Wei Lin. When Wang Ruoya saw Yun Jian, she thought that she had come back to die, so she tried her best to make Yun Jian leave as soon as possible. Wei Xiao knew that Yun Jian wasn't her biological daughter, so she didn't have much of a reaction. When Li Mu saw Yun Jian, his entire body trembled. Then Li Mu's subordinates who were armed with machine guns surrounded Yun Jian as well. Li Mu did not expect Yun Jian to avoid being surrounded by the people he had brought with him outside the Wei family's villa when he arrived at the living room so quickly. Wei Xiao knew that Yun Jian wasn't his biological daughter, as expected, especially just when like he found out that Li Mu was the boss.
You have a
of
strong
Country
presence,
T's
but in
underground
reality
black
you're a
market.
useless piece
Wei
of
Xiao was
trash.
even more suspicious
In front
of
of
Yun
Li Mu's
Jian's true
subordinates who were
identity.
holding machine
She
guns,
actually
Yun
offended the
Jian
boss
crossed
of
her
Country
arms
T's
lazily and
underground
pursed her
black
lips.
market. She didn't
However,
look afraid
after
at all.
listening to their conversation,
Wei
how do
Xiao's
you know
heart
Shen Yu
trembled
was my son?
violently. Li Mu
So
was
you really
stunned
didn't
and wanted to
investigate
say
me?
something.
Yun Jian
In the eyes
sneered.
of outsiders,
Her words
Shin
sent
Yu
a
and
chill
Li Mu's
down Li Mu's
relationship was
spine.
just Shin Yu
He
following Li
instinctively
Mu's
called
gang.
the
That was
informant
all.
who found out
The
that
number
Yun
of
Jian
people
was
who
the one
knew
who
that
killed
Shin Yu
Shen
was
Yu.
his biological
When Li Mu
son could
asked
be
the
counted
informant
on one
about Yun
hand.
Jian's
The
specific
strength of the
information
young
and
girl
heard
in
his
front of him
reply,
had
the
greatly
phone in
exceeded
Li
his
Mu's hand fell to the
expectations.
ground.
Just
He
as
looked
Li
at
Mu
Yun
was about
Jian,
to
his
speak,
face pale
Yun
with
Jian
fright.
didn't give him the chance. Facing the dozen or so
Translator,
machine guns in front
Atlas
of her,
Studios
she
editor,
took 2 steps
Atlas
forward without a
Studios.
hint of fear, then spoke to Li Mu in front of everyone. Old thing, didn't you investigate me before you sent someone to assassinate me? When Li Mu heard Yun Jian's words, his heart skipped a beat. He really didn't investigate Yun Jian's specific identity. But after he found out that Yun Jian killed his son, he immediately sent people to assassinate Yun Jian. What do you mean by that? Chapter 2343. Li Mu did investigate Yun Jian, but he didn't investigate Yun Jian's identity. He only found out that Yun Jian was the person who killed his son Xianyu. She was just a little girl in her teens. What could she possibly do? Li Mu didn't even investigate Yun Jian's actual identity. He only investigated Yun Jian's basic identity before he brought his men to assassinate Yun Jian. Li Mu almost went crazy because he wanted to avenge his son Xianyu. But he forgot to use his authority to investigate Yun Jian's identity on the biggest intelligence platform. There was an international intelligence platform that specialized in collecting information. It was connected to the Kosha mercenaries intelligence team. This intelligence platform was formed by many internationally renowned intelligence groups, such as Wuxia Mercenaries Intelligence Group. It was an integrated platform. And on this intelligence platform, any information, even international news as long as one paid, could be inquired about. It could be said that this was the gathering point of the intelligence platform. The informant who answered Li Mu's call just now was the staff of the intelligence platform who had found out that Yun Jian was the one who killed Xianyu after his death. When Li Mu looked at Yun Jian, his face was pale with fright. Wei Xiao and Wang Ruoya were confused. Li Mu's subordinates were stunned and didn't know what to do. Dad. Mom. A panicked female voice came from the bathroom in the living room. Everyone turned to look and saw Wei Min standing near the bathroom not far from the living room. She was looking at Limu and his men with fear in her eyes. The Wei family was like the Luo family and Hong family, one of the three big families in Puluo City. They all relied on the underworld to make their fortune. In the beginning they were worried that they would be hunted down by their enemies if they switched to the legal side. So, when the Wei family villa was being built, they built an underground secret tunnel. Wei Min and her men used the underground secret tunnel to avoid the group of people outside the Wei family villa and return to the Wei family villa. Whoa. Woo woo woo. Wei Xiao didn't react when he saw Yun Jian, but when he saw his daughter Wei Min and son Wei Zhe bringing a group of friends back to the Wei family, he started to shake his head desperately to signal them to run. But Wei Min didn't understand her father's meaning at all. She looked at Limu with fear and said to Limu, "Let go of my dad. Wei Lin caused this trouble, don't implicate my parents." As she spoke, Wei Min turned to Yun Jian and spat with a hateful glare, "Yun Jian, you're the one who's going to die. Wei Lin, you're too much. I really wanted you to come back to the Wei family, but you actually wanted to harm father and mother because of you." Before Wei Min could finish her words, Limu was the international intelligence platform was one of the top 10 public in the world. Is one of the top 10 people in the world. Most people knew about the international intelligence platform. Even Luo Zhejun, Wei Zhe and Wei Min knew about it. Everyone knew that the international intelligence platform was a place where you could get all the information you wanted as long as you were willing to pay the corresponding price. However, there was an exception in the international intelligence platform. There were 10 public biographies and ambiguous portraits posted in the center of the international intelligence platform. The 10 resumes and portraits represented 10 people. These 10 people were the public figures of the international intelligence platform. No matter how much money the employer offered, the people of the international intelligence platform wouldn't dare to investigate their identities. It could be said that even the people of the international intelligence platform didn't dare to provoke those 10 people. They were afraid and terrified of them. That was a symbol of power, status, and identity. Limu's words spread throughout the venue, causing everyone to be stunned. However, before everyone could react to Limu's words, Limu had already stared at Yun Jian in front of everyone. Once again he used a voice that was trembling with fear to ask Yun Jian, "Just now, the people of the international intelligence platform said that you're one of them. You're really one of the top 10 people in the world that they can't afford to provoke out of the 10 public portraits of the international intelligence platform. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website." Chapter 2344. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The International Intelligence Platform was located in the busiest part of Country M, and at the entrance of the first floor of the International Intelligence Platform's central building, there were 10 portraits of people that everyone knew. Some of the portraits only had a black shadow and a rough outline, and it was hard to tell if the person was male or female. However, all 10 portraits had their own unique characteristics. For example, they held a weapon that they were used to using, or they had a symbolic tattoo on their body, or they had a broken finger, or they had a scar on their face. However, there was no doubt that the people in the portraits were all people whose names were enough to make the International Intelligence Platform tremble. At the bottom of the 10 portraits, there were also simple biographies of the people in the portraits, which were known to all. Moreover, these 10 portraits were marked with the words one of the top 10 most untouchable people in the world. Furthermore, the international intelligence platform's people publicly stated that no intelligence team would dare to investigate the people in the portraits. No matter how much money they offered, they would refuse to investigate the people in the portraits. This matter was not considered a secret, it was made public on the international intelligence platform, and anyone who knew a little about it knew about it. Therefore, when Lai Mu repeated the same words to Yun Jian, whether it was Luo Jiejun, Luo Jiechen, Wei Zhe, Wei Min, Hong Ling, or even Wei Xiao and his wife Wang Ruoya who were tied up and gagged by Lai Mu's people, all of them were stunned. When everyone heard Lai Mu repeat the same words, they were stunned on the spot, their mouths forming an O shape, their eyes unblinking and their expressions changing drastically. Not to mention Luo Jiejun and the others, even Lai Mu's group of brothers were stunned, they held their machine guns in their hands and did not move an inch. Everyone's expression could not escape the word fear. When Luo Jiejun heard this, he was the first to recover from his shock and he was the first to speak to Lai Mu in shock. The international intelligence platform's people said that she was one of the people in the portraits? The international intelligence platform you're talking about? Is it the famous international intelligence platform formed by all the major international intelligence teams? Luo Jiejun rarely asked questions with such a stunned expression. Luo Jiejun, the young master of the Luo family and the future heir of the Luo group, who had always been mature and steady, had the demeanor of doing great things, uttered such words with such an expression. This was the first time Wei Min had seen something like this since she was young. Therefore, even Wei Min, who did not know about the 10 portraits on the international intelligence platform, had an incredible feeling for a moment. That's right, it's that platform. Lai Mu panicked. Just now, when he asked the staff of the International Intelligence Platform Center to investigate Yun Jian's identity, the staff of the International Intelligence Platform Center directly refused him. They also said that Yun Jian was one of the 10 portraits, so the International Intelligence Platform Center, which claimed to be the world's top intelligence platform, had no way of tracking down Yun Jian's specific identity. Limu was, after all, someone who had been through a lot. He knew very well that in this world if he met a strong opponent he could not fight them head-on. I'm sorry for offending you just now. I hope you can forgive me. About my son Xinyu, I'll use the previous 2 unintentional assassinations as compensation. From now on we don't owe each other anything. Let's go. Limu immediately saluted Yun Jian, then gestured for his men to walk towards the door. Luo Jiejun, Wei Zhe, Wei Min, and the rest instantly heaved a sigh of relief. Regardless of whether Yun Jian was one of the 10 portraits on the international intelligence platform or not, it was a good thing that Limu decided to stop, so this matter would not implicate the Wei family. However, just as Luo Jiejun and the rest thought that Yun Jian was purposely minimizing this matter, they saw Yun Jian standing at the same spot in front of everyone. She said arrogantly to Limu, who had yet to rush out of the Wei family's door. I'll give you 1 hour. If you can escape from Z country's borders, I'll let you go. If you can't, then, go to hell. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2345. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. How arrogant. How arrogant. She was more than arrogant. Everyone heard Yun Jian's words, especially Luo Jiejun, Wei Zhe and Wei Min. Even if she really was one of the 10 portraits of the international intelligence platform that Lai Mu had mentioned, and was listed as one of the top 10 most untouchable people in the world, she was only one person. What about Lai Mu and his men? They were armed with lethal weapons and a large group of people. Yun Jian was outnumbered. Lai Mu had just spared the Wei family and turned to leave when Yun Jian called out to him again and said such words. She's crazy. The boss of Country T's black market had already retreated, but she still called out to him and said such provocative words. I really treat Lin as my sister, but not only are we still here, even our parents are still trapped. She wants to send us into the fire pit. Wei Min hid behind Luo Jiejun, Wei Zhe and Hong Ling. To an outsider, Wei Min's words sounded right. She was praising Yun Jian in front of Luo Jiejun and the rest. Wei Min did not dare to say these words loudly. She only dared to say them in front of Luo Jiejun and the rest to sow discord. As for Lai Mu, after hearing Yun Jian's words, he stopped in his tracks. Pausing, Limu was taken aback. He did not reply to Yun Jian after that as he led his men outside. Not long after, the battlefield that seemed to be filled with smoke quickly returned to normal. Dad. Mom. Wei Min was the first to rush up and untie Wei Xiao and Wang Ruoya's bindings and gagged mouths. Yun Jian did not even look at Wei Xiao and Wang Ruoya as she walked up the stairs.
Otherwise, this day
Wei
next
Lin,
year will
be
the anniversary
Mom
of your
and
death.
Dad are tied up here
It did not
because of
sound
you.
like a joke.
After that person
After
left
hearing
with
this,
his men,
the few people
you didn't even
present
care
trembled
about them and
violently.
just walked up the
No
stairs.
one said a word as
You're
they
too
watched Yun
inhumane.
Jian disappear down
Wei
the
Zhe
stairs.
called out Yun Jian's name.
An hour later,
His face
in
was
Yun
dark as
Jian's
he
bedroom.
spoke.
Pressing
As
the
Yun
button
Jian
to
answered
answer
the
brother
call,
and name,
Qing
Wei
Yu's
Zhe
voice
looked
came
at
from
Yun
the other
Jian
end.
and asked in
Sister
dissatisfaction after he
Jian,
said
Li
that,
Mu and the
"What
others
do you
have
think?
escaped from
What's
country Z
going on
within
with
an
you?
hour."
What's
Yun
with the
Jian
10
pressed her
portraits
lips
of the
together when she
International
heard what
Intelligence
Qing Yu said
Platform?
as her eyes
What's
flickered.
going on? They had
Now
really
that Mom and
escaped
Dad
from
are
country
here,
Z
you'd better
within an
explain
hour?
yourself.
In the next
What did you
second,
do
Yun
before you
Jian
returned
ordered
to the
Qing
Wei
Yu
family?
softly with a smirk.
What was your identity?
Kill them with all you've
Tell
got.
me clearly before
Don't
you
leave a
leave.
single one alive.
What Wei Zhe said
Translator,
was what Luo Jejun
endless
Hong
fantasy
and Luo
translation
Jejun wanted to
editor.
know as well.
Endless fantasy
Hence,
translation.
everyone looked at Yun Jian with scrutiny after Wei Zhe
Chapter
spoke.
2346.
Yun
She was
Jian
halfway
had
up
never
the
been
stairs
a good
when she
person who
heard Wei
kept her
Zhe.
word.
She was already
The
halfway.
words "keep your promises" had always been targeted at the target. For a weed who had tried to
Then
assassinate
she turned
her
around
twice.
in front of
Yun
everyone and
Jian's
stared
usual
at them
practice
coldly.
was to not leave a
Suddenly,
single strand
she
of it
uttered
alive.
something that sent chills
Yes.
down their spines.
Qing Yu, who was
From
familiar
today
with Yun
onwards,
Jian,
don't let me hear
nodded
any of
when
you
she heard
asking
Yun
about my
Jian's words
past.
and agreed with Yun Jian decisively. Yun Jian hung up the call and tossed her phone to the bedside table before closing her eyes to sleep. Yun Jian woke up early the next day. She got out of bed early and went for a morning run to the academy as usual. There were already many classmates in the classroom when she first entered the academy. Yun Jian walked to her seat with practiced ease. Morning. Luo Zhechen stood up to greet Yun Jian when he saw her today. He greeted Yun Jian almost immediately. Yun Jian nodded and returned to her seat. Nothing worth mentioning happened until the night before the fencing competition. School ended very late that night, mainly because Yun Jian's class teacher had delayed the class, so it was almost 9 o'clock when school ended. Yun Jian walked out at 9 o'clock at night. Luo Zhechen followed behind Yun Jian like a shadow. At the same time he chuckled at Yun Jian. Wei Lin, I didn't expect you to be so amazing. I don't mean anything else. I'm not trying to find out about your process. I'm just telling you about it. Also, I'll be your underling from now on. The kind that follows behind your butt, hee. Luo Zhechen was still following Yun Jian to the academy's entrance. They were only halfway there. The sound of a police siren suddenly rang out. Yun Jian raised her eyebrows. A police car sped into the academy. I heard that someone died in the toilet. They're all dead now. Seems like a suicide or a homicide. The police car is here now. What? Someone died in our academy. This can't be real, right? How could it be fake? During the last night's self-study class, a girl in our class needed to pee and went to the toilet. Guess what happened? She walked into the toilet and opened a toilet door. Just as she was about to use the toilet, she found a corpse. The people who came back were scared silly. After the school confirmed it, they immediately called the police. Oh my God. Is that a student from our school committing suicide? Who knows? Probably. Two girls walked past them and were talking in a very soft voice. Although their voices were soft, Yun Jian and Luo Zhechen were both martial artists. They immediately heard what the two girls were saying. F***ck, I was wondering why it was so noisy during the last night's self-study session. It was as if something big had happened. He's dead. Luo Zhechen was shocked when he heard what the two girls said. Yun Jian's eyes moved, but her face was calm as if it had nothing to do with her. Let's go. Yun Jian walked out of the academy. When something like this happened, the most innocent party was the school, and the most pitiful ones were the students' parents. However, she still had to go home. The next morning Yun Jian went to school as usual. However, because of the murder, the school had to postpone the fencing competition. Since last night, the police and related personnel had been working through the night. They had not been able to close their eyes until now. Their spirit was indeed commendable. In the middle of the class, two police officers suddenly appeared outside the classroom. Everyone in the classroom was shocked when they saw the police officers. At the same time, a younger police officer walked into the classroom. He scanned the classroom and immediately asked, "Hello, everyone. Hello, students. Is there a student called Wei Lin in your class? Can you ask her to come out for a moment? Please remember the domain name of this book, .com. Wonderful book mobile version website, .com. Chapter 2347. Hearing the young policeman's words, someone in the class immediately pointed at Yun Jian. It's her. Uncle policeman, she's Wei Lin. What's going on? No, you're the police comrades who were in charge of the murder case that happened at the academy last night, right? No. Wei Lin didn't do anything, why are you looking for her? Luo Zhechen quickly defended himself. No, 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 we're just asking her a few questions, the young policeman quickly said after hearing Luo Jiechen's words. Hearing that it was nothing serious, Luo Jiechen heaved a sigh of relief. Yun Jian's eyes moved and she walked out. It was not until Yun Jian left the classroom that the students in the class started making wild guesses. There was a murder case at the academy yesterday, and Wei Lin from our class was taken away by the police today. Do you think this has something to do with Wei Lin? I think it has something to do with her. When Wei Lin wasn't here, nothing like this happened in the academy. Once she came, not only did she attract young Master Jun's attention, even young Master Chen from our class has been circling around her. She's like a vixen. That's true. Maybe the death of the classmate who got into trouble is related to Wei Lin. The group of people talked among themselves. At this moment, Yun Jian had already been taken away from the classroom. Yun Jian was directly brought to the crime scene. Yun Jian was brought here because someone pointed out that Yun Jian had a dispute with the deceased 2 days ago. The deceased was none other than Sister Biao, who had touched Ling Chanchan previously and admired Yun Jian. This news made Yun Jian's eyelids move, but she never showed her emotions on her face. After hearing this news, Yun Jian's eyes only moved. Previously, Sister Biao admired Yun Jian, so she did not touch Yun Jian. In the end, during the last self-study period last night, her body was found in the toilet. When Sister Biao was found, her head was submerged in the toilet and she died of suffocation. The police only asked Yun Jian a few questions before letting her go. When Yun Jian came out, she bumped into Luo Jiejun and the others. That day Yun Jian and Sister Biao had a conflict, because of Ling Chanchan. Luo Jiejun, Hong Ling, Wei Zhe and Wei Min were also present, and they were all pointed out. Therefore the police also questioned them. When she met Luo Jiejun and the others at the outskirts of the interrogation area, Yun Jian did not even bother to entertain them. Her eyes flickered as she suddenly turned to the police officer who had questioned her just now and said, "I'm sorry. Can I have a look at the corpse?" Hearing Yun Jian's words, the policeman was stunned. Then he said in a daze, "The victim died a horrible death. Young lady, are you sure you want to see it? It's better if you don't get involved in this mess. You're still young and that scene will scare you until you can't sleep." Needless to say, even he felt that it was a little creepy when he saw it. Yun Jian didn't reply to the policeman. Instead, she suddenly asked in front of Luo Jiejun and the others, "Have the police contacted a forensic doctor?" A forensic doctor was a type of forensic expert in the country. According to the laws and regulations and industry standards, they used various techniques or methods to conduct a medical investigation on the scene, autopsy, symptom analysis, identification of relics, and a series of methods to investigate the real culprit. To put it simply, a forensic doctor was a person who relied on autopsy to investigate the cause of death of the deceased, or to investigate the details of the environment to find the real culprit and give justice to the deceased. Not yet. But we've already sent someone to contact them. After hearing Yun Jian's words, the policeman was stunned and immediately replied, "Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile reading website. Chapter 2348. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Forensic doctors dealt with corpses and even used scalpels to dissect corpses when necessary to determine if the deceased was a homicide or a suicide. Forensic doctors were different from traditional doctors in that they could not treat illnesses or save lives. But in a sense, forensic doctors and doctors had something in common. For example, the courses of forensic science and medical science would overlap in the first few years, but in the later internship, the courses of forensic science students and medical science students would be separated. Forensic doctors dealt with corpses all year round, so when normal people heard the word forensic doctor, they would be shocked and would not want to come into contact with this person. This also caused the number of people who studied forensic medicine to be very small. In the entire Puyo city, which was a metropolis with a population of millions, there were less than 50 forensic doctors. Those who were good at it were even fewer. Yun Jian, on the other hand, was just the youngest daughter of the Wei family who had just been found. There were rumors that she was one of the 10 portraits on the International Intelligence Platform and was listed as one of the most untouchable people in the world. But so what? So far, other than Limu's words, there was no evidence. And what was the highest medical institution in the world of international medicine? It was the place where forensic doctors gathered in the entire world. There were very few people in the medical profession, and it was an arduous and thankless job. However, those who were at the top of the world of forensic medicine were highly respected. Once you achieved something in your profession and stood at the top of the world, those who did not think highly of you would change their opinion of you. In the world of forensic medicine, those who could enter the highest medical institution in the world of forensic medicine were undoubtedly people who stood at the top of the world of forensic medicine. Therefore, when Yun Jian finished speaking, everyone was shocked. One must know that a forensic doctor who wanted to enter the highest medical institution in the world had to go through many trials and tests. A normal forensic doctor would need to be at least 30 years old to have the ability to enter the highest medical institution in the world. According to the latest news from the highest medical institution in the world, the youngest person to be specially invited to the highest medical institution in the world was a 28-year-old male forensic doctor. This male forensic doctor was the youngest person in the history of the highest medical institution in the world to be invited to the highest medical institution in the world. And Yun Jian? She was only 18 years old. You. Lin, what are you talking about? Our Wei family has never had a forensic doctor. Really, where did you get this fake ID from? What happened at school yesterday has nothing to do with the Wei family. Don't take it all on our Wei clan. When Wei Min heard what Yun Jian said, she almost blurted out her full name at Yun Jian, but she held it in. Not only did she have to take into account her reputation as a good sister, but she also had to say these words with a fake smile. Wei Min was really quite tired. When the policeman heard Wei Min's words, he was misled by Wei Min and thought that Yun Jian had a fake ID. Yo, there's even a replica of the International Supreme Forensic Academy seal here. Len, son. I really didn't know that you were so capable. As Wei Min spoke, she found a seal at the bottom right corner of Yun Jian's document. When they heard Wei Min say that Yun Jian's ID was fake, Luo Jiejun, Hong Ling, and Wei Zhe naturally had no reason not to believe it. After all, with Yun Jian's age, and her being a special guest of the highest medical institution, no one would believe it even if they said it out loud. However, when Wei Min finished speaking and Luo Jiejun and the others thought that Yun Jian was lying, the policeman suddenly rushed in front of Yun Jian and carefully examined the seal at the bottom right corner of Yun Jian's ID. Just when Wei Min, Luo Jiejun, and the others thought that the policeman would accuse Yun Jian of faking the ID, they saw the policeman speaking to Yun Jian in a very respectful tone. This seal is really personally printed by the president of the highest medical institution in the world. With the assistance of the medical examiner from the highest medical institution in the world, there's no way for anything to go wrong. Mr. Medical Examiner, thank you for your hard work. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2349. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. When the police were investigating cases, there would often be cases of unnatural deaths that were suspected to be homicides. At this time, forensic science played a huge role. There were even cases where the deceased would be disguised as suicide. If there was no forensic science at this time, then the deceased would have died unjustly, and the murderer would be free. Forensic science was the source of these cases. That was why forensic science was a very respectable profession. The police officer recognized the seal as he had seen it on the news before. The seal of the International Supreme Court was not something that could be easily imitated by outsiders. For a forensic science that was worthy of respect, the police officer gave Yun Jian the highest respect. Hearing this, Yun Jian squinted her eyes and nodded. Police officer, how's the investigation of Lin Jiayue's case? Yesterday, when Lin Jiayue's parents heard the news, they both fainted and were sent to the hospital for emergency treatment. Lin Jiayue's father said that if the school and the police did not give him an explanation, he would. So I'm here to ask about the situation. A mature man's urgent voice sounded. Yun Jian turned her head and saw a middle-aged man in his 40s standing in front of her. Lin Jiayue was the real name of the deceased Sister Biao. It was hard to imagine that such a boorish girl like Sister Biao would have such a literary and lady-like name. But if one only looked at Sister Biao's appearance, she was so petite that she was only slightly shorter than Yun Jian. Her perfect figure matched Lin Jiayue's literary and lady-like name. You are Lin Jiayue's class teacher, right? The police officer looked at the middle-aged man in his 40s and asked. Yes. The middle-aged man nodded. This middle-aged man was Sister Biao's class teacher, Teacher Yang. The case has already begun its investigation. I believe there will be a result soon. If you are still worried, you can come with us to take a look. At the same time, you can also provide information about Lin Jiayue's current situation and relationships in school. The police officer looked at Teacher Yang and said, Okay. As long as you can find the unpardonable murderer, I will definitely cooperate with you. Teacher Yang listened and quickly nodded. Yes. The policeman nodded at Mr. Yang, then turned to look at Yun Jian and extended his hand to Yun Jian. Let me formally introduce myself. My surname is Zhou. You can call me Captain Zhou. I am the person in charge of the investigation of this case. Yun Jian didn't reach out, but she nodded. Wei Lin. Seeing Yun Jian and Captain Zhou walking toward the crime scene, Luo Jejun and Wei Min gulped. You guys go back first. I'll follow them and see what's going on. Luo Jejun couldn't help but retort. With that, Luo Jejun chased after Yun Jian. I'll go too. When Wei Min heard this, she gritted her teeth and quickly followed. When Wei Zhe and Hong Ling saw this, they naturally couldn't just leave on their own, and the two of them chased after him. The crime scene is right in front of us. The victim was found in the girls' toilet on the west side of the school. As far as we know, during the last class of the evening self-study period, the victim asked for leave from the teacher to go to the toilet because she needed to pee. Later, the victim's head was found soaked in the toilet pit. It's suspected that she was soaked in the water in the toilet pit and suffocated to death. Captain Zhou took the lead and led Yun Jian in that direction, talking as they walked. Captain Zhou paused and said, The body is still in the girls' toilet on the west side of the school. Because it's suspected to be a homicide, the crime scene hasn't been changed in order to investigate the case thoroughly. After hearing Captain Zhou's words, Yun Jian only responded softly. At this time, Luo Jejun had already taken the lead and ran to Yun Jian's side. He was a little out of breath from running. After grabbing a handful of his short black hair, Luo Jejun spoke to Yun Jian. Can you do it? A forensic doctor has to face a corpse. You're a girl, aren't you afraid? No matter what, Yun Jian was just an 18-year-old girl in the prime of her youth. Moreover, although Yun Jian had shown extraordinary strength in front of everyone before, she had never killed or seen a dead person in public. Therefore Luo Jejun was very doubtful. After hearing Luo Jejun's words, Yun Jian, whose path was blocked, stopped in her tracks. She coldly looked at Luo Jejun with contempt and said indifferently, I've killed more people than you've peed in your entire life. Do you think a corpse can scare me? Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2350. Page 1/1. Pee that has been spilled. These 4 words stunned everyone present. Logically speaking, such words coming out of the mouth of an 18-year-old girl would more or less carry a trace of awkwardness, unnaturalness, rudeness, and shamelessness. But when these words came out of Yunjian's mouth, there was no sense of contradiction at all. However, what made Luo Jejun, Wei Min, Wei Zhe, and Hong Ling, who had caught up with them, suddenly stunned was not the metaphor of these 4 words, but, had she, Yunjian, killed someone before? Even Captain Zhou couldn't help but raise his eyebrows in surprise when he heard Yunjian's words. It's just a joke. Ignore them. When everyone present heard Yunjian's words and felt shocked and terrified, Yunjian's voice sounded again. These words were directed at Captain Zhou. Ah! Although the girl was young, she was still a forensic doctor at the International Supreme Court of Forensic Medicine. If she was really afraid of corpses, she would not have been able to enter the International Supreme Court of Forensic Medicine. You youngsters, if you're afraid, then don't come in. The victim's death was so tragic that I'm afraid it'll leave you with a shadow. Hurry up and leave. Captain Zhou was a very upright police officer. Before he brought Yunjian into the crime scene, he waved at Luo Jejun and the others. She's not afraid and neither am I. I'll go in with you. Luo Jejun couldn't help but refuse. I want to go too. When Wei Min saw that Luo Jejun wanted to go in, she also spoke up. Yunjian ignored Luo Jejun and the others. She followed Captain Zhou and quickly entered the crime scene. Of course, before entering the crime scene, Captain Zhou gave Yunjian a set of forensic tools. At that time, Yunjian walked into the toilet and put on a pair of sterile gloves. Although Mr. Yang was also a little scared, he still followed them into the toilet. At this moment, Yunjian was walking at the front. She didn't panic at all when she saw the corpse. As for Wei Min, Hong Ling, and Wei Zhe, they followed closely behind Luo Jejun. Luo Jejun's forehead also broke out in cold sweat, but when he saw that Yunjian was not afraid at all, he gritted his teeth and pretended not to be afraid at all and continued to follow her. Captain Zhou had already seen Sister Biao's corpse, so he was not afraid or flustered at all. By then, everyone had already arrived at the toilet pit where the corpse was found. The few people present suddenly saw a corpse lying not far away. Its head was slightly swollen from being soaked in water, its face was pale, its hands drooping and its long black hair disheveled. Suddenly seeing this scene, Wei Min screamed. Then she fiercely hugged Luo Jejun and was so scared that her whole body trembled. Even Luo Jejun's face turned pale when he saw this scene. Needless to say, the deceased was not far away. Not to mention Wei Min, Hong Ling, and Wei Zhe, even the bravest Luo Jejun did not dare to walk forward. If you're afraid, you can leave first, Captain Zhou immediately said to Luo Jejun and the others. I think I'd better leave first. Teacher Yang's face turned pale. He was a little frightened by the tragic state of the corpse. After saying this to everyone, he hurriedly left the place. However, just when everyone was afraid, even Captain Zhou, who had already seen the corpse of the deceased, was shaken by the atmosphere. His heart trembled slightly. Yunjian suddenly walked directly to Sister Biao's corpse in front of everyone. She reached out her hand that was wearing a sterile glove and placed it on Sister Biao's eyes. Then she lifted Sister Biao's eyelids and roughly checked. Seeing Yunjian suddenly walk in front of the corpse, not only was she not afraid, she even lifted the corpse's eyelids. Even Luo Jejun felt a chill run down his spine. When Wei Min saw this, she screamed and pointed at Yunjian. She shouted, She's not afraid. She's really not afraid. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 2354. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1, An Assassin's Foundation Course. Wei Lin, how do you know that this is an Assassin's Foundation course? Before anyone could speak, the red-haired Hong Ling spoke first. After Hong Ling finished speaking, everyone stared at Yunjian, as though they wanted to get an answer from Yunjian. Hong Ling's words were what many wanted to ask. However, Yunjian did not reply. She glanced to the side and continued, For those who have joined an assassin's organization, this is a compulsory foundation course. However, it does not exclude those who have learned it on their own. From the crime scene, I deduced that the victim was abducted on the way to the toilet and was then forcefully dragged into the toilet. At this point, Yunjian paused for a moment before continuing. There are obvious footprints at the entrance of the toilet. A normal person's footprints should not be all over the entrance. I have already compared the footprints on the victim's shoes with the footprints at the entrance of the toilet. There is no doubt that it is the victim's footprints. Besides the victim's footprints, there is another person's footprints all over the entrance of the toilet. Obviously those footprints belong to the murderer. Just from the footprints left behind by the victim at the entrance of the toilet, Yun Jian deduced that the victim was dragged into the toilet halfway. When everyone heard this, they were stunned. Yun Jian's observation was too detailed. No one would have thought of such details. Even medical examiner Hang could not help but twitch the corner of his mouth when he heard Yun Jian's words. Just as medical examiner Hang was about to speak, Yun Jian spoke again. Please leave first. I have something to confirm. It's not convenient for all of you to be here. After hearing Yun Jian's words, perhaps because of Yun Jian's words, everyone left the autopsy room immediately. Yun Jian closed the door of the autopsy room. 3 minutes later, Yun Jian left the autopsy room. The victim's vagina was ruptured. Judging from the bloodstains, it was ruptured less than 24 hours ago. There are obvious marks on the side of the victim's mouth. From this, we can conclude that the victim was raped and then killed. The murderer covered the victim's mouth to prevent her from crying out. Secondly, it made it easier for him to commit the crime. After Yun Jian left the autopsy room, Ben Rin spoke clearly to everyone. Rape and kill? Didn't Captain Zhou say that half a month ago, a boy confessed to Lin Jiayue and was humiliated instead? That boy admires Lin Jiayue but harbors a grudge against her. Could he be the one who did this? Luo Jiejun was, after all, the future heir of the Luo family. He possessed intelligence that most people did not have. These words seem to reveal everything. Brother Jiejun has never studied forensic science, but he's just that amazing. This is something that outsiders can never learn. Wei Min, who had been pressed against the wall by Yun Jian and almost suffocated, could not help but praise Luo Jiejun. However, Luo Jiejun ignored Wei Min. He turned to look at Captain Zhou and said, Captain Zhou, should we detain the suspect now? Luo Jiejun's words made a lot of sense to everyone present. Even Hong Ling and Wei Zhe felt that Luo Jiejun's analysis at this moment was comparable to Yun Jian's. Medical examiner Hang stood aside, speechless. However, just as everyone was thinking this, Yun Jian suddenly said, I already know who the murderer is. Captain Zhou, get ready to arrest him. As soon as these words came out, everyone present was dumbfounded. Medical examiner Hang was even more stunned. After being stunned for a moment, he looked at Yun Jian and asked with a changed expression, What? You already know who the murderer is? The complexity of this case is probably comparable to an S-rank mission. How long have you been on this mission? You already know who the murderer is. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. You destroyed all the evidence at the scene, but from the beginning your expression told me everything. Yun Jian ignored Mr. Yang's rebuttal and continued speaking. Upon hearing Yun Jian's words, Teacher Yang suddenly laughed coldly. After that, Mr. Yang stopped arguing. He reached out and tore off the human skin mask on his face. Then, in front of everyone present, he said, Ha! So what? That's right, I'm not that idiot Yang Jihong. That fool had already gone to hell. But even if you found out about me, what can you do? Before I retired, I was an ace assassin in the International Underground Assassin Organization. I'm already very surprised that you were able to find out that it was me who did it. But if you want to capture me with just your group of trash, then you're all delusional. What police, what medical examiner? In my hands you're just a group of small fries. Mr. Yang suddenly changed his face and claimed to be an ace assassin in the Underground Assassin Organization. This identity scared Luo Jiejun and the others. Captain Zhou and medical examiner Hang were not in a hurry to turn back. Assassin. And he was an ace assassin in the underground. Everyone present was scared by this change and took 3 steps back. However, just as everyone's face changed and kept retreating, Yun Jian, who stood in the same place without moving, suddenly raised her eyes. That pair of deep black eyes was now stained with a trace of blood red. Then she looked at Teacher Yang, and suddenly curled her lips into a cold smile. Then, in front of everyone present, she said to Teacher Yang, a sentence that shocked everyone present. Ace assassin in the underground? Which organization are you from? How dare you be so arrogant in front of me? Do you know, when I was in the assassin and secret agent world, you didn't even know what I was. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2356. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Once Yun Jian said that, everyone's eyes widened in shock as they bulged out of their sockets. What did she say? When she was in the world of assassins and secret agents. To be able to say something like that, it meant that Yun Jian was an assassin and secret agent. She had also been in the world of assassins and secret agents. Then her true identity was, "Little brat, are you even 18 years old? You want to compare who has been in the world of assassins and secret agents for longer? I've been in the world of assassins for 30 years. In terms of experience and ability, I'm definitely not weaker than you." Teacher Yang heard Yun Jian's words and refuted Yun Jian loudly before anyone could react. His words were equally arrogant, but there was a confidence in his words that no outsider could imitate. In Teacher Yang's opinion, Yun Jian was at most an 18-year-old girl. In his words, she hadn't even grown her hair yet she dared to say something like, "When I was in the world of assassins and secret agents, you didn't even know what you were." Wei Lin, don't be stubborn. This matter is no longer something we can interfere with. Come back quickly. Let's leave this matter to the police. Luo Jiejun saw Yun Jian standing in front of Teacher Yang, and was afraid that Teacher Yang would hurt Yun Jian. He quickly spoke up and tried to call Yun Jian back. "Yes, come back quickly. You're a genius in the world of forensic medicine. You've already completed your mission the moment you found the murderer. I've already contacted the Pueyuo City Armed Police Force. I believe that the armed police force will be here soon to assist us in apprehending the murderer. You don't have to interfere with the rest of the matter." Captain Zhou and Luo Jiejun used the same tone to speak to Yun Jian. In fact, Yun Jian's words about being a secret agent and a member of the assassin world were just a bluff from Captain Zhou and Luo Jiejun's point of view. Yun Jian purposely lied to Teacher Yang. Seeing that the situation wasn't right, Yun Jian still dared to speak to Teacher Yang in such a tone. If Yun Jian didn't retreat in the next second, she would definitely lose her life here. Teacher Yang suddenly chuckled. "That slut Lin Jiayue refused to be my woman and even scolded me for being the scum of society. She said that I would go to hell sooner or later. Iske, look for yourselves, that's what happened to her. But you little brat actually dare to use such a tone to talk to me? Do you want to end up like that bitch Lin Jiayue?" Teacher Yang spoke in a slow and leisurely tone, giving off a sense of leisure and laziness. At this point, Teacher Yang cast a sidelong glance at Yun Jian and continued speaking in front of everyone. "TSK. Seeing how pretty you are, I really can't bear to kill you, but..." Teacher Yang. When he said this, he suddenly paused. His black eyes were originally staring at the ground. In the next second, he didn't continue speaking. After pausing, Teacher Yang suddenly raised his eyes that had been staring at the ground. At that moment, he was already charging towards Yun Jian like a bolt of lightning. Immediately after making his move, Teacher Yang bent his hand into a very standard eagle's claw and extended it towards Yun Jian's neck. At the same time, a sinister voice suddenly sounded, "But you can still go to hell." Teacher Yang's sudden attack made everyone present unable to react in time. When Luo Jiejun and the others saw this, their eyes fiercely froze and even their breathing stopped at the same time. "It's over. It's too late. Yun Jian is finished. That kind of fast killer move. If one hadn't been in the assassin world for more than 10 years, they wouldn't have been able to withstand it." However, just when everyone thought that Yun Jian was finished, they saw that when Teacher Yang made his move, not only did Yun Jian's face not have the slightest bit of panic, but there was also an incomparably cold smile. In the next second, everyone suddenly saw a scene that caused their pupils to shrink and their mouths to open wide in shock. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2357. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1, Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Teacher Yang bent his hands into the shape of an eagle's claw, reaching towards Yun Jian's neck with lightning speed. He planned to grab Yun Jian's neck and kill Yun Jian in one move. The speed of his attack, the way he attacked, it was so fast that no one could react in time. His speed, if he wasn't a trained ace assassin, he definitely wouldn't have the ability to do this. An ace assassin from an underground assassin organization. That was a terrifying existence. To the police, an ace assassin who had undergone strict training, who had been through life and death situations, and who had grown up in a survival of the fittest environment, was simply a nightmare. But even so, a powerful ace assassin from an underground assassin organization would still be caught by the police. But at least for now, Captain Zhou and the few ordinary policemen he brought from the police station, plus Luo Jiejun, Wei Zhe and the other students as well as Hang Medical Examiner, there was no way they could compete with Teacher Yang. Not to mention saving Yun Jian from the murderous Teacher Yang, who belonged to a group of terrifying assassins from an assassin organization. No. Wei Lin. Dodge. Luo Jejun's face suddenly changed. He was so scared that his face suddenly turned pale, even his teeth started to tremble. Luo Jejun was so scared that his face suddenly turned pale, his teeth trembling, because he was afraid that Yun Jian would be killed by Teacher Yang. During this period, Luo Jejun had been paying more and more attention to Yun Jian. At this moment, Yun Jian was like a cloud of fog to Luo Jejun. The secrets she carried were like a bottomless pit that attracted Luo Jejun's attention. If Yun Jian died, then all of this would be gone. So Luo Jejun couldn't bear it, and almost at the same time he shouted out these words in a hoarse voice. If it was said that Wei Min had never seen Luo Jejun's various actions before. But at this moment, when Wei Min saw that Luo Jejun was about to be killed by Teacher Yang because of Yun Jian, she screamed on the spot. Wei Min's face hardened again, her nails digging into her flesh. Die. Die. Ah. Go to hell like Lin Jiayue, that untouchable bitch. Ah. However, the crowd only saw that Teacher Yang had already arrived in front of Yun Jian. At that moment, Teacher Yang's hand had already curled into an eagle's claw and was about to grab Yun Jian's neck and deliver a fatal blow. No. Luo Jejun, Captain Zhou, Hang medical examiner, and a few other people who cared about Yun Jian all let out a fatal cry. Just as the crowd screamed and closed their eyes in despair, waiting to see Yun Jian's neck snapped with a crack after Miss Yang grabbed her and killed her on the spot, Yun Jian's face suddenly turned pale. All the others saw was a flicker in Yun Jian's eyes. The next moment, just as Teacher Yang's hand was about to reach Yun Jian leaned to the side and dodged Teacher Yang's attack. Then in a flash she appeared behind Teacher Yang. Even Teacher Yang did not have time to react at this speed. Everyone was shocked, but Yun Jian hooked Teacher Yang with her leg and tripped him. The moment Teacher Yang was tripped and fell to the ground, the two butterfly knives in her hands flew out. The saber flashed in an instant and slashed through the meridians of Mr. Yang's wrists and ankles at the speed of lightning. Poof! Blood splattered everywhere. The blood drew a curve in the air and sank into the dust on the ground. This speed was so fast that Teacher Yang did not even have time to react. It was so fast that everyone present widened their eyes. Ah! Teacher Yang's scream suddenly rang out. In the next second, Yun Jian stepped on Mr. Yang from the back and sneered at him in front of everyone. Mr. Yang, you're the one who's being bullied. I already said that when I was in the assassin and secret agent world, you didn't even know what you were. Crippling your limbs. In the past you were barely considered something, but now you're a complete piece of trash. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Therefore, Yun Jian's bowl of fried noodles was equivalent to 3 bowls of ordinary fried noodles. It was Yun Jian who deliberately asked the cafeteria auntie to prepare 3 servings. Damn, Wei Lin, you're eating so much again. Luo Zhechen stepped on the stool and jumped onto it. He sat on the stool, holding a lunchbox that was 1/3 the size of Yun Jian's stir-fried noodles. He stared at her in a daze. Yun Jian responded softly and continued to eat her noodles. At this moment, Luo Jejun, Wei Zhe, Wei Min, and Hong Ling just happened to walk past the table where Yun Jian and Luo Zhechen were sitting. At this moment, Luo Zhechen was looking at Yun Jian with great interest. When Luo Jejun and the others walked past Yun Jian, Luo Zhechen suddenly said to Yun Jian, Wei Lin, don't tell me you're pregnant. I heard that women eat a lot when they're pregnant. And to be able to eat 3 times more than ordinary people, this means that there are 2 in your stomach. Don't tell me you're pregnant with twins. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2360. Luo Zhechen was grinning as he said this, his face full of ridicule. As he spoke, his deep black eyes seemed to stare at Yun Jian's stomach that wasn't bulging, and he was all smiles. Suddenly hearing Luo Zhechen's words, Yun Jian's hand that was holding the stir-fried noodles suddenly paused. Zhechen, what nonsense are you talking about? You're usually ignorant and incompetent in the academy, hanging out with your hooligan friends every day. I don't care about you anymore. But what kind of nonsense are you spewing out of your mouth? Wei Lin is still a pure and innocent girl, she hasn't even had a boyfriend, how could she be pregnant? Luo Jejun had just walked past Yun Jian and Luo Zhechen when he suddenly heard Luo Zhechen's words. Luo Jejun stopped almost at the same time, turned around and scolded Luo Zhechen. Luo Jejun suddenly stopped and said such words to his younger brother Luo Zhechen. This action shocked everyone present. Needless to say, Luo Jejun was paying more and more attention to Yun Jian now. He was just passing by, but when he heard Luo Zhechen's words, Luo Jejun immediately stopped and scolded his own younger brother in such a tone. And it was because of a girl. This was something that had never happened before. No brother, can't you tell? I'm just joking with Wei Lin. We usually joke around too. If you don't believe me, you can ask Wei Lin. Luo Zhechen was so scared that his face trembled, and he quickly waved his hand and pointed at Yun Jian. Wei Lin, don't you think so? Luo Zhechen looked at Yun Jian with an expression that begged her for help, and his hands were begging for help. He didn't want his big brother to complain to his dad. Yun Jian responded softly, then she picked up the pickled cabbage stirred in the stir-fried noodles, chewed it, and continued to eat. Yun Jian didn't think that she was pregnant. She used to eat a lot, and recently she didn't feel like vomiting anymore, so it obviously wasn't a sign of pregnancy. Moreover, even if she was really pregnant, she definitely wouldn't let Luo Jejun and the others know. Luo Jejun, Wei Min, and the others had their own thoughts when they saw that Yun Jian was too lazy to say anything else after replying. Not long after, Yun Jian finished her meal and left. From the beginning to the end, she did not pay any attention to Luo Jejun, Wei Min, and the others. Captain Zhou came to see Yun Jian for the last time. He brought Yun Jian the last news about Sister Biao, who was also Lin Jiayue. Lin Jiayue's family was very wealthy. Her family's cash flow was enough to buy 10 of the largest and most expensive private helicopters in one go. Men tend to be fickle when they have money. Lin Jiayue has a father who has multiple wives. Modern society didn't allow polygamy. Lin Jiayue's biological mother died early, and her stepmother married her father. Chapter 2361. Seeing the last sentence, Yun Jian's red arc slightly closed, and her long eyelashes fluttered up and down. Captain Zhou didn't notice these subtle expressions at all. At that time, Captain Zhou couldn't find any change in Yun Jian's expression when she saw the last page of Lin Jiayue's diary. Can you give me this codebook? Yun Jian didn't raise her head to look at Captain Zhou and asked bluntly. Originally, the deceased's belongings should be handed over to the deceased relatives, but I think the deceased's relatives don't care. Even the body of the deceased was claimed by the deceased's nanny. Take this codebook if you want it, Captain Zhou said to Yun Jian after hearing Yun Jian's words. Thank you, Yun Jian said softly, then turned and left. 5 days later. It was a sunny day, but the temperature difference between day and night was huge. In the winter night, the cold wind was bone-chilling. It could make people shiver all over and their legs tremble. It was daytime when the sun was high up in the sky. If people walked to a dark place, they would also shiver from the cold. However, if they stood under the sun, they could feel the warmth of the sun. It wasn't hot at all. Lin family. After Lin Jiayue's death, her body was taken home by Lin Jiayue's nanny. She was cremated at the crematorium and brought back in urn. There was no intention of holding a funeral inside or outside the Lin family. At this moment, Lin Jiayue's father, Lin Xingyuan, was holding a banquet to entertain his business friends. Lin Xingyuan didn't intend to hold a funeral at all. He just wanted to use the funeral of one of his daughters to hold a big banquet, make friends in the business world, and try to expand his company. Lin Xingyuan wasn't good looking. His skin was so rough that it was difficult to look at it directly. He had big ears, a big mouth, and a big nose. His face was flat and rectangular, and he was only 161 centimeters tall. At this time, Lin Xingyuan was holding his mistress, Zhang Xiaomei. Zhang Xiaomei was 168 centimeters tall. When she stood next to Lin Xingyuan, there was a stark difference in height. Dear say, Lin Jiayue has already passed away, and this urn is placed at the entrance of our living room. How ominous is that? If you ask me, let's throw that thing out the door. My dear, I say this for the good of our family. How ominous would it be if so many big bosses came up tonight and saw that urn? What a disappointment. Right? At this moment, Zhang Xiaomei was about to stick her full breasts to Lin Xingyuan. She used all her strength to blow air into Lin Xingyuan's ear. Good. I'll do as you say. Lin Xingyuan patted Zhang Xiaomei's butt and nodded. Zhang Xiaomei was only 20 years old. She was young enough to be his new mistress. She was pretty, and most importantly, she was good in bed. After Lin Xingyuan agreed with Zhang Xiaomei, he hurriedly called the Lin family's only nanny over. Lin Jiayue's mother passed away early, so Lin Jiayue was raised by her nanny. Lin Jiayue's death caused the nanny to be in pain and worry for the past few days. When she heard that Lin Xingyuan was going to move Lin Jiayue's urn from the Lin family's living room to the door, the nanny's tears instantly fell. She stood up and resisted Lin Xingyuan for the first time. Master, Yu is also your daughter. She hasn't been buried yet, so let her stay at home for a while. It's cold outside, I'm afraid of her. I'm afraid of her catching a cold, As the nanny spoke, her tears couldn't stop falling. Her good daughter, wow. She was only in her teens, and at such a young age she had already entered heaven. Moreover, was there no room for her ashes in the house? Is this family yours or mine? You don't want to let it go. Good. Someone move the urn and all the wreaths, these ominous things out. Lin Xingyun was so angry that a lump of air came out of his nose and he roared. Someone immediately walked over to throw the urn and wreaths, which symbolized Lin Jiayue's farewell, out of the Lin family's door. The nanny cried as she rushed over to stop them, but she was pushed to the ground. Just as the mistress Zhang Xiaomei smirked and her plan succeeded, the door was suddenly kicked open. The solid door was uprooted and kicked over 10 meters away, almost crushing one of the guests. At that moment, a beautiful girl who had stopped outside the door and entered, immediately appeared in front of everyone's frightened eyes. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2364. No one knew what Yun Jian was doing just now. They all thought that Yun Jian was crazy. But at this moment, as the master of the Lin family, Lin Xingyuan, didn't say anything. Naturally, the VIPs and guests who were invited to the Lin family were even more unwilling to appear. When the small note and code book in front of everyone's eyes completely disappeared along with the fire in the basin, Yun Jian turned and walked towards the door when the fire in the basin started to fade. Behind Yun Jian was the flickering fire, and Yun Jian walked towards the Lin family's door under everyone's eyes. She accepted her wish on her behalf. She didn't have the right to care about other things. Everyone had their own fate. Yun Jian wasn't someone who meddled in other people's business. Just as Yun Jian walked out of the Lin family's door, Zhang Xiaomei, who had snuck out just now, suddenly brought a group of bodyguards and blocked Yun Jian at the Lin family's door. That's her. She was so cocky just now. She even threw a knife in front of Lin Jiayue and said something like, "The number of souls that died under my butterfly knife is exactly 5,000 people. So cocky, so cocky." Zhang Xiaomei brought a group of bodyguards and blocked Yun Jian's way. "Little girl, you're so young but you know how to brag? You even said that you killed 5,000 people? So cocky? Then little girl, may I ask when you started killing people? 8 years old? Or 9? Haha, you don't even have a draft when you're lying. You kill people every day. It's extremely difficult for you to kill 5,000 people. Even professional killers aren't as cocky as you. I'm impressed by your bragging. I can't help but be impressed." Ah. When one of the bodyguards heard Zhang Xiaomei's words, he chuckled and said coldly. At this moment, Lin Xingyuan and the guests in the room were all gathered at the door. Zhang Xiaomei actually went to call the bodyguards to save the situation. This group of bodyguards has been through life and death situations. I heard that they once rescued their employer from the hands of an international top-secret agent. That's why Big Boss Lin hired them. No matter how good this little girl is, she can't go against the heavens. I reckon that not long after this little girl's bragging will explode. Someone said excitedly. There's going to be a good show. This little girl is really brave, but it's useless no matter how brave she is. The surrounding people started to discuss again. When Lin Xingyuan heard what the people around him said, he lifted his head smugly, no longer looking fearful of Yun Jian like he did just now. At the same time, Yun Jian, who stood in front of the bodyguard, suddenly took out a transparent glove from her pocket and put it on slowly in front of everyone as she spoke. "I'm not sure if I'll be able to do anything." A bodyguard from the International Olin Group Bodyguard Company? Hearing this, the group of bodyguards standing in front of Yun Jian, who were excitedly watching Yun Jian put on the glove, were stunned. One of the bodyguards stood in front of Yun Jian and said, "How did you know?" Hearing this, the guests, Lin Xingyuan, Zhang Xiaomei, and the others were all stunned. However, before the crowd could react, Yun Jian spoke again. Her voice was mixed with a hint of arrogance. The next moment, the words that came out of her mouth made everyone present feel a wave of fear. "Coincidentally, I have a grudge against the International Olin Group bodyguards. Since you've delivered yourself to my doorstep, I'll send you on your way. Please remember the domain name of this book, .com. Wonderful book mobile version website, .com. That fearless child who stood in front of him the moment he was in danger, reaching out with his short little hands. Now, they had become ashes that could be held in a small hand in front of the morning hall. Perhaps when the wind blew, that small handful of ashes would disappear into every corner of this world, never to be found again. Lin Xingyuan, who suddenly thought of this, had tears in his eyes. He suddenly shouted, You. He turned around and pushed Zhang Xiaomei away and rushed to the morning hall of the Lin family's villa. Almost at the same time, Lin Xingyuan ran and knelt in front of Lin Jiaoyue's morning hall. His brows were wrinkled into waves and tears flowed down his face. God would not forgive those who did wrong easily. If you did something wrong, you would need to pay the same price in exchange. Yun Jian turned her head and looked at Lin Jiaoyue's portrait in front of the morning hall again. Then she turned around and left without any hesitation. Go cherish. Once you miss a person you will never meet again. This was fate. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2367. The bodyguards of the Lin family naturally didn't dare to stop Yun Jian from leaving. Therefore no one said anything about Yun Jian's departure. 3 days later, the fencing competition would officially begin. The fencing competition that had been delayed due to the murder case was finally about to begin. The students of the Imperial College were extremely excited. On the night before the competition, Yun Jian and all the students who were participating in the competition were called together to visit the palace of the Imperial College. Everyone knew that the first dean of the Imperial College in the last century was John, an aristocrat of Country Y's palace. He was also an artisan. After John came to Country Z and founded the Imperial College, the first thing he did was to order people to build a palace that was similar to the palace of Country Y. The architectural style of the palace was pure Country Y. Usually the palace of the Imperial College was locked with a key from the outside. Only when the annual fencing competition was approaching would the registered students be allowed to visit the palace. At this moment, Yun Jian was walking towards the palace of the Imperial College with a group of students who were participating in the fencing competition. Wei Lin, you're here too? Let's go together. Luo Jiejun's voice came from behind Yun Jian just as she was walking towards the palace with a group of people. Needless to say, Luo Jiejun's tone was very cheerful when he saw Yun Jian. Yun Jian didn't turn around, so Luo Jiejun brought Hong Ling and Wei Min to Yun Jian. Wei Zhe was played by Yun Jian last time and couldn't move his hands no matter how hard he tried. Therefore he could only give up this fencing competition. At this moment, Wei Min found Yun Jian to be more and more of an eyesore. Not only did she steal Brother Jun from her, she even beat up her brother until he didn't know what was going on. His hands couldn't move and he had no choice but to withdraw from the competition. However, just as Wei Min was about to say something unpleasant to Yun Jian, a voice was one step ahead of Wei Min and suddenly sounded in front of everyone. Wei Lin Air, I'm coming, ha, let's hurry up and choose the flower sword. If we're late, those little bastards will snatch it away first. Everyone felt a gust of wind blow past them, and then a figure appeared beside them. As Luo Jiechen ran to the front of the crowd, he put his hand on his crotch and fastened the zipper. Those who knew what was going on knew that Luo Jiechen had just gone to the toilet. He didn't even have time to zip up his pants before he ran out. Those who didn't know would think that Luo Jiechen had rushed over after visiting a prostitute. Puff! What the hell are you doing? When Hong Ling saw Luo Jiechen's strange look, he grabbed a handful of his short red hair and laughed out loud. Get lost. He's just like my brother. I can't be bothered to see you. Luo Jiechen pushed Hong Ling aside and walked over to Yun Jian. He said to Yun Jian, don't worry. Wei Lin, let's go quickly. If it's too late, all the swords for tomorrow's fencing competition will be taken away. One of the main reasons he came to the palace was because there were many flower swords hidden inside the palace. Fencing was another name for the sword used in fencing competitions. Not only were there many flower swords hidden inside the palace, there were also many names, portraits and statues of the fencing geniuses from the Imperial College that were hidden in the palace. The college allowed the students to come here every year. Other than choosing a suitable flower sword for their competition, they also wanted the students to visit the names, portraits and statues of the fencing geniuses from the past, and remember the glorious history of the past. Everyone quickly came to the interior of the palace, but just as they arrived at the interior of the palace, Yun Jian didn't see any flower swords to choose from. Instead, she saw a tall and familiar handsome man wearing the uniform of the Imperial College, walking towards her from not far away. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version reading website. Chapter 2369. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. CE had seen plenty of blood. Be it the blood of the dead or the living, it made no difference to CE. He had never panicked at the sight of human blood. This time, however, CE paused and stopped what he was doing. His piercing gaze was fixed on Yun Jian's pale lips, his previous aloofness and nonchalance turning into endless panic. Xiao Jian, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? The amount of blood was nothing like when his Xiao Jian was on her period. Once Ce was done with his panicked words, he did not even bother to open the door. He kicked it open and scooped Yun Jian up, leaving the Lamborghini sports car behind to carry Yun Jian to Emperor Academy's infirmary. Ce's expression was terrifyingly dark. It was only when something happened to Yun Jian that his aloofness would change completely. His Xiao Jian was fine in the palace just now, but after jumping down from the third floor, once he thought about it, Ce clenched his fists that were carrying Yun Jian. If he was not in a hurry to send Yun Jian to the hospital, he would probably punch himself to death. The Imperial College had its own school doctor's office, and the medical equipment was considered to be very complete in the college. Many illnesses, including women's private matters, could be handled by the academy's infirmary. Hence, Ce carried Yun Jian all the way here. His tall and handsome figure attracted a lot of attention from the academy, but Ce did not care. They passed by Emperor Academy on their way to the palace that Yun Jian and Ce had visited just now. On the third floor of the palace, Luo Jiejun grew increasingly agitated when he saw Yun Jian and Ce leaving. In the end, he ditched Wei Min, Hong Ling, and the others and hurried to apply for leave from the teacher and left. Wei Min did not bother to stay with Hong Ling either. She stood by the ancient window on the third floor of the palace in a huff, her mind drifting away. Hey, isn't that the transfer student who just came today? He's so handsome. How can there be such a handsome guy? He's carrying a girl too. It's true. He's so handsome. I used to think that our school's Master Jun was the most handsome person in the world, but after seeing this transfer student, I realized that I don't even want to look at him anymore. Two girls who were standing by the window not too far away when they saw a handsome figure running by Yun Jian from the bottom of Emperor Academy. They covered their faces in excitement. Their voices attracted Wei Min's as well. The man who carried Wei and carried Wei Min was running translation was carrying Wei Min translation. Translation. When Wei Min saw this, her eyes twitched fiercely. In the next second she turned around and went down the stairs of the palace. She casually applied for leave from her teacher and left the palace. Before Yun Jian could react and explain herself, Ce had already carried her to the school doctor's office and placed her on the examination bed. The school doctor in charge of the examination was a female doctor. After examining Yun Jian, she did not find anything wrong with her body. She was still a little suspicious. Why would her lower body bleed all of a sudden? However, in order not to be mistaken as a quack, the female doctor pressed on Yun Jian's stomach twice and concluded that the cause of Yun Jian's lower body bleeding was. The female doctor also prescribed some medicine for Yun Jian. When she passed the medicine to Ce, she saw that there was a trace of sweat on Ce's originally handsome face, which would not change even if the sky collapsed. It was obvious that he was concerned about Yun Jian's condition. The female doctor was afraid that she would be mistaken as a quack, so she pinned the blame on Ce. Young man, I see that you're young, handsome, and responsible. I didn't expect you to be such a person. You actually dared to bring your girlfriend to play a game of jumping from the third floor. You're unscathed, but do you know that your girlfriend already has? Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy. Chapter 2370. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Yun Jian is probably XX, page 1/1. Just now, the female doctor had asked Ce if Yun Jian had done any strenuous exercise before she bled profusely down there. In the end, Ce told her that he had jumped down from the third floor of the palace with her. Oh my god. One floor of the palace was twice the height of a normal residential building. Jumping down from the third floor of the palace was equivalent to jumping down from the sixth floor. The female doctor thought it was a miracle that she didn't die from the fall. What was even scarier was that the baby in the girl's stomach was completely fine. That was 2F king amazing. Even now, the female doctor still didn't know what was going on with the pool of blood that was flowing out of Yun Jian's lower body. Dr. Jiang, have you finished prescribing the cold medicine I asked you to prescribe for me last time? However, just as the female doctor was about to finish her sentence, a clear female voice came from outside the school's infirmary. The owner of the female voice interrupted the female doctor and strode into the school's infirmary. Cough, cough. As she spoke, the owner of the female voice covered her mouth and coughed twice. Then the owner of the female voice seemed to have suddenly seen Yun Jian and shouted at Yun Jian in shock. Wei Lin, why are you here? The person who came was none other than Wei Lin, who had seen Ce carrying Yun Jian into the school's infirmary. Wei Lin felt that something was amiss, so she followed along. Yun Jian merely glanced at Wei Lin and did not respond to her. Wei Lin's motive wasn't that. When she saw that Yun Jian was ignoring her, she walked over and dragged the female doctor, who was called Dr. Jiang, out of the school's infirmary. Dr. Jiang, my cold is getting worse. Please give me my medicine first. Cough cough. Dr. Jiang was dragged away by Wei Min, but before she left, she didn't forget to say to Ce, all right. You can leave later. Your girlfriend is fine. Remember to take care of her body when you go back. Don't play games like jumping down from the 3rd floor of the palace next time. Ce heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that Dr. Jiang was fine. His clean black hair was already soaked in sweat. One could imagine how scared he was just now, but he didn't show it on his face. After Dr. Jiang walked out of the school's infirmary, Yun Jian tugged at Ce's sleeve. Ce turned to look at her. Yun Jian's Dr. Jiang, Dr. Jiang, Jiang, Dr. Jiang, Yun Jian, and Jiang, Dr. Jiang, Dr. Jiang, Dr. Jiang. Dr. Jiang, Dr. Jiang, and Dr. Jiang. C. Dr. Jiang? Dr. Jiang, who had been pulled out of the infirmary by Wei Min, was dragged to a corner by Wei Min. Knowing that Wei Min was the eldest daughter of the Wei family, Dr. Jiang did not dare to provoke her. After Dr. Jiang was dragged to the corner, Wei Min crossed her arms and looked at Dr. Jiang. I'll give you 2 choices. First, work for me. Second, pack up and leave. Dr. Jiang, I think you're a smart person. You should know what to choose. Wei Min crossed her arms and said bluntly to Dr. Jiang. The Wei family was a famous and influential family in Puyo City. The children of the Wei family were all powerful people in Emperor College. Moreover, the eldest daughter of the Wei family, Wei Min, was different from the youngest daughter of the Wei family, Wei Lin. Wei Lin had been lost for many years. Among the daughters of the Wei family, Wei Min was undoubtedly the most favored. Dr. Jiang was not stupid. She immediately said to Wei Min, Miss Wei, what's the matter? Just say it. After hearing Dr. Jiang's words, Wei Min pursed her lips and asked, What's the situation with Wei Lin? Tell me. When Dr. Jiang heard this, she told her everything she knew. I pressed her stomach just now. According to my experience, there's a 99% chance that she should be pregnant. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios.